Welcome, everyone. I am super excited. I feel like I always start by saying I'm super excited, but I always really am really excited to get to bring some of these stories out. We have Sarah Dreyer here with us today to share a bit of her ME, CFS, or chronic fatigue syndrome, a full recovery story. So welcome, Sarah. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to share my story.
So I'm calling you from San Francisco. Where are you in the world right now?
So I'm in England. I'm just outside of London in Surrey. But I am South African. I've been living in England for a year and a half now.
Oh, okay. So did you go straight to England from South Africa?
No, I didn't. I first moved to the Sultanate of Oman, and then I moved to Azerbaijan, Baku, and then from there I came to England.
Wow. That is quite the journey you've been on. All right, so obviously, you and I are chatting today to hear a bit about your ME/CFS journey. But as always, I like to start these chats just hearing a bit about life was like for you before this all started. Or, some people have had chronic health issues their whole life, so maybe this is all you know. But I don't actually know tons about your story, and I suspect other people don't either. So it'd be great to know what life was like for you before your health challenges started for you.
Okay, so I was a primary school teacher. First I was a kindergarten teacher and then moved into teaching primary. Year one was my favorite. And then I was also a very active person. I loved to travel and I was always going on long walks and in the gym. So I did have quite a hectic lifestyle. I pushed my body quite hard physically and so I was active, but I would say I was a little bit too active. But again, I was healthy. I ate right. I made sure that I was taking my supplements as well. But I did burn out a few times as I was moving along, doing too much, burning the candle at both ends. So there were warning signs to begin with. Healthy, happy, but pushing myself too hard.
And I think this is a story that a lot of us are hearing a lot with this illness. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but it seems like a lot of us that get ME/CFS, we're really pushing ourselves really hard. And when we look back, we can see kind of this like warning signs that something was happening. And,
exactly.
I wonder sometimes, because I think, this is just a trait that us people who get ME/CFS have. Not that it's our fault, of course, there's a lot of factors involved. But I'm also starting to wonder, is everyone relate to this? Maybe just the modern world, we're all pushing ourselves too hard and with the high expectations and stressful jobs. And
definitely, I think so. And I was taking on extra things, like I was tutoring after my hectic work day. So I was just adding on extra things wherever there was an opportunity. I was like, I'll do it. I'll take it. Let's go. But so sometimes that's not always the best way to live.
Yeah, I'm laughing, just because it's so relatable. And I'm thinking, I think we all are quite busy, but it definitely does seem to be a theme amongst us that we are the types that seek out these ways to almost, like we're aiming to burn ourselves out.
Exactly. I actually hated to sit down. Like when I sat down to watch TV, I started to feel like, maybe I should start cleaning my apartment. Crazy. I don't know how I did it.
It's really relatable. I remember when I would get the flu. I mean, of course I wasn't happy, but it actually sometimes felt like a bit of a relief because I just got an excuse to rest for a couple of days. Because otherwise I didn't give myself those breaks because I felt like I always needed to be productive. So when you're going through life and getting the flu feels like a vacation, you probably
know something's wrong.
Something's not in line. So what happened? When did you start to notice that you were having some maybe, beyond or outside of the range of normal health challenges?
Okay, so first it started after the second year of me moving to Azerbaijan. The first year I was so happy, everything was going well. At school, I loved the kids. Everything was I was actually at a very happy point of my life. And then I went on summer vacation and came back after it had finished. And my apartment, I'll say it wasn't full in the beginning because I didn't realize the extent of it. But my apartment had black mold around the ceiling. So apparently the apartment above me had leaked throughout the summer, and my apartment being closed for those 2 months, it had caused black mold. So I tried to get them to move me. It was a little bit of a struggle, and I don't think they took the black mold as serious as they should have. So I was also quite scared to touch it or like clean it or anything like that. So I was just living in the apartment, petrified. I didn't know what to do. And then quite rapidly, actually, my health declined and just something was not right. And my partner was actually the one who said to me, I think it's the black mold. And then me and my mother was living in Azerbaijan as well at that time. And we literally pulled down the wallpaper and there was black mold everywhere. So I didn't realize how bad it was. So yeah, so that was the beginning of the decline of my health. And it took a couple of months before I realized that what I was experiencing was chronic fatigue.
So what did you start feeling, or what sort of symptoms were you having? What did that look like for you?
So the first few symptoms were kind of like insomnia. Again, they're like feeling wired all the time. So I couldn't sleep. So I was struggling to sleep in the night times, and then I was super wired throughout the day. And then I was still pushing myself. I was trying to go to gym after work, but it was such a struggle. And then I started getting flu-like symptoms. So every time I would go on the treadmill for 20 minutes, I would be just walking on the treadmill and I would start to sneeze. And I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, how can I be getting a cold continuously? This is not right. So I went to the doctor. We had loads of blood tests done. The first diagnosis I got was depression, but obviously that was not the case. But I carried on searching, and then I did my own research, and my mom stumbled across the CFS symptoms, and we read through them, and I was like, oh my goodness me, I have all of these. And then I was in denial for a few more months, and then I just couldn't deny it. I was like, I definitely have chronic fatigue syndrome.
So what did you think? So when you went to the doctor and you're having all these struggles, I imagine life was quite difficult. Like you can't keep up with things, and then the doctor tells you it's depression. What was your response to that, or what did you think?
Well, my first thought was that's an easy way just to brush someone off, because, you know, I understand with depression there is a little bit of tiredness and lack of motivation, but that wasn't the case. I had the motivation. I really wanted to continue to live my active life. And I really did. And I was, again, my own worst enemy. I still carried on doing the things that I shouldn't have been doing. I still went on walks. And again, I still tried to go to the gym when I could. And I even did travel a few times during that year, even though it was a struggle. But yeah, it was saddening at first, but then I also realized that generally in the healthcare system, it's really hard to diagnose chronic fatigue because of the way it is diagnosed. So I was saddened, but I just thought, okay, let me just carry on.
Yeah, it's such a tough one because, like you said, depression, there are symptoms that seem to overlap with things like chronic fatigue syndrome. And I think a lot of us probably even present as a bit depressed, but I think it's, for a lot of us anyway, secondary. We're depressed because all of a sudden we're struggling and we can't go to work and we can't go to the gym.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I did say to the doctor, like, of course I'm upset that I'm not able to physically do the things that I want to do, but I'm still keeping upbeat and being positive every day and trying my best and trying different things, like everything that I could try. I was like, okay, so someone said meditation works, then we meditate. Someone said put your legs up on against the wall. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. I definitely was still trying.
Yeah, it does sound like most of us recognize that depression was not the start. It's definitely more of a result that comes later. So what happened from there?
So from there, my partner suggested that I move to England. Luckily for me, that was an option. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll come to England. The healthcare is a bit better here. Let's get a second opinion. Let's start from scratch, get more blood tests done. And a lot of people were saying to me, the air in England is clean, and the environment is, better. I don't want to say anything negative about Azerbaijan, but yeah, it can be a little bit dirty. So in my head, I was like, okay, fine, I'll move to England and then try the doctor route again, go and get the blood tests done and see what happens. I did actually move to England thinking that I was going to start working as a governess. So I had the job lined up. I came here on holiday and I went for the interviews. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen because of your health?
Yes. After moving to England, it was a rapid decline.
And what did that look like for you?
So I took the summer holiday and I tried to rest and rebuild some energy. So I got an easy part-time job. It was 3 days a week and I was just working at a after-school club. But even that got too much. Unfortunately, I would come home and I wouldn't be able to come to the bedroom. I wouldn't be able to walk up the stairs. So I would collapse as soon as I entered the house.
Oh my goodness, that is terrible. And what were you thinking? What? Of course, I've been through my own journey with this, but all of ours is a bit unique. Like, what was going through your head when all this was happening?
To be honest, it was quite an emotional time. I did cry a lot. But I was very lucky to have my partner and my family and his family all supporting me, and they would help me with everything that I needed. And so I did have emotional support and I had physical support around me, which made it much easier for me. So my partner didn't even want me to do the part-time job, but that's me again being my own worst enemy. I did it up until the point where I couldn't, and I still was getting worse and worse. So I know that if I had stopped pushing so hard earlier on, my chronic fatigue wouldn't have gotten to the severe levels that it did, because it actually even got worse.
What were the doctors saying throughout all of this? So did you start seeing some doctors when you came to England?
Yes, I did. I started the blood tests again from scratch, which I was happy about. Everything was fine. They were actually very happy with my blood test results. And the first doctor I saw, she also said that it was psychological. But then I at that point I was a little bit more sassy and I was like, I'm sorry, that doesn't explain the physical symptoms that I'm experiencing. So I pushed a little bit harder, also having more knowledge about chronic fatigue myself. So I continued to just ask questions and just I didn't give them a break. I was always phoning in and I was always just trying to follow up just to get some sort of answers. And then eventually, but it took about a year. After another year, I finally got the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome.
And I'm curious when you're pushing back with the doctors a bit, and good for you for doing that. I think that's another thing we all have to learn as we go, unfortunately, with this. But how did they react when you're like, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't explain it? Like, what was the response?
So, well, at that time, my decline was so rapid that every time I saw them, even if it was a space of 2 weeks, my physical symptoms were worse and my fatigue was worse. So I would literally be like, look at me. I can't even walk into the doctor's room anymore. So when I first came here, I was, working a part-time job, and then I had to even cut some of those days, and then I was housebound, and now I'm bedbound. So what is going on?
Sorry, it hits me every time I hear these stories. It's just so devastating and it sounds so scary and so overwhelming, and it's just such a horrible thing for anyone to be to face and to deal with and without answers. And I'm glad you eventually got a diagnosis. What did you think when you got this diagnosis?
Well, funny story. I actually got the diagnosis just after I recovered. So for me, I felt relief. I felt validated. It was quite a big momentous moment for me. But at the same time, I was also like, wow, okay, I've got this diagnosis, but how lucky and how blessed I am to actually be recovered. I mean, my diagnosis says it's for life, but look at me now. I'm actually recovered. So it was a lot of mixed emotions. But yeah, happy and excited that I no longer had chronic fatigue syndrome.
That's amazing. This is a first. I've never heard anyone say that they got the diagnosis once they are already recovered. That is incredible. And I imagine, because it sounds like, because a lot of people say they get the diagnosis and they do feel that initial sort of, relief and validation and all of that, but then it's sort of a honeymoon period, because then you start diving into what's out there online about this, and it can be not so encouraging. So at least you already were in a place where you're like, okay, I know this isn't true. I know these stats or information I'm seeing online are not accurate, at least not for you. So of course, I'm super curious. I'm sure we're all really curious to hear how you ended up getting past this. But just before we move on to that, something that people ask me about a lot is finances, because trying to support yourself while chronically ill can be incredibly challenging, to put it mildly. So if you don't mind my asking, what did that look like for you, and how did that impact your financial situation?
That's okay. So first of all, I had saved up before I moved to England, but moving to England was a big expense on its own. But yeah, so I moved here. I bought a car because I thought that I was going to be working full time. Then after the realization that I wasn't going to be able to physically go out and work a full-time job, I decided to learn how to do lash extensions and lash lifts. And so I got into the beauty industry. I was doing manicures and pedicures. So something that I could do from home. And also with the lash extensions and lash lifts, you don't need to give out that much energy. I mean, obviously focus and attention. And towards the end, the brain fog really got in the way, because I literally couldn't even see what I was doing, even though it was right in front of me. But yeah, so I did that. And then also I did some online tutoring until it was too much for me. But I could do that, even if I asked them if we could please do half an hour sessions instead of the full hour. So that was a bit of an income. And then towards the end, unfortunately, I was having to get some help through my partner was supporting me, and my mother was sending me some money just so I could get my supplements, because I was taking so many supplements. And I'm sure a lot of people out there with chronic fatigue syndrome are doing the same, because it really does help alleviate some of the symptoms.
That's good to hear that you found help from supplements. I always feel so mixed about this topic, because I'm not sure, because when I first got unwell, as people who have watched my videos, I apologize, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but I took so many. I was taking about 100 pills a day. I was taking thousands of dollars per month worth of supplements, all prescribed by my doctor. I was seeing an integrative medicine doctor. And I did see some improvement in the beginning, but since I took all of them all at once, and then I actually stopped all of them all at once, which is probably not advisable, I didn't notice a difference when I stopped taking them, so I don't really know if anything helped. Mm-hmm. So I know supplements are very person specific, and I don't ask this for other people to latch onto it and think that it's going to help them. But are there any that stand out to you from your journey that were specifically helpful for you specifically?
So only towards the end of me having chronic fatigue, I started taking ubiquinol. And they really did help with my energy levels. And to be honest, even though I recovered, I still was taking a small dose of ubiquinol every day, and I could notice a big difference on the days that I didn't take it. Obviously, so I'm vegan, so I take B12, and I definitely notice a difference on the days that I don't take B12, but it has to be a good B12. And then also, generally, I was taking supplements like zinc and magnesium and vitamin C and things for my immune system, because I was quite susceptible to getting colds and flus, and maybe also working with children, the risk is higher. So doing that, I do feel like it did support my immune system some more. And then again, like probiotic and cat's claw and things for digestion, because obviously, you know, when you are struggling with severe chronic fatigue, your digestion is not working very well.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you found some things that help. And I'm certainly not saying that supplements don't help. I just, when people ask me, I'm like, I don't know. I know nothing. I really didn't, and I got a bit jaded after, you know, because it's quite expensive and it definitely adds up. So now as much as possible.
Last thing, I'm so sorry. One thing that really helped me was melatonin, because obviously struggling to sleep, if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. So I was taking melatonin, and I do feel like it helped me get a few hours of sleep each night.
Yeah, I have heard other people say the same, that they found it hugely helpful. Yeah, that's good to know. You mentioned being vegan. During out your journey, did you ever experiment with diet or try different things, or are you just stuck to your normal routine?
So to begin with, I was quite extreme. I actually was eating raw foods because I felt like it gave me some energy. And working a full-time job as a teacher, I needed that energy, especially in the beginning, like I said, when I was unsure of what was going on in my body. I do feel like it helped. But then once I moved to England and my health declined, I was less and less able to get to the shops and to have that amount of fresh produce. So I was eating easier foods like a potato, like that's filling and it's easy to make. So potatoes and rice, I was eating more cooked foods. But the one thing that I do feel like made a huge difference in my diet was when I cut out gluten. That for me was a big step, because I was having a very bad reaction every time I ate something with gluten. My heart rate would increase, and it literally felt like my heart was going to beat out my chest. So once I stopped gluten, I noticed that didn't happen anymore. And then also when I ate more processed foods, I just felt even more fatigued and sluggish and not energized at all. So in that sense, I mean, obviously, generally, if you're going to eat unprocessed foods, you're going to feel better. So so it definitely did help me. And another thing that helped me a lot was drinking celery juice. And I know that this is also a controversial topic, but for me personally, celery juice has been amazing for me. It literally gives me energy every single morning, and I still drink it now.
What is the controversy around celery juice?
So I think it's also to do with medical medium and the medical medium community, and obviously him not having medical qualifications. So some people, they don't take what he says so seriously, and maybe they're also just a little bit unsure of the source of the information. But I just say, give it a try and see how you feel. And if you feel anything like I did, you'll be so happy that you've found it. It's definitely not something that's going to 100% heal you. But again, it's something that can help you manage day-to-day symptoms.
Yeah, I hear about the celery juice a lot. It wasn't something, I did a lot of juicing, like green vegetable juice, but not specifically celery juice, because it wasn't so huge back in my time. But yeah, so many people say that it helps. So yeah, I'm with you. Regardless of the source, you don't want to discount it just because you don't, whatever your thoughts are about the person that it came from. Yeah. Okay, so I'm so curious. I want to know, how did you end up getting out of this? What happened?
Okay, so on the days that I was feeling well enough, I did a lot of research and I reached out to a lot of people, and I was very open to listening to other people's recovery stories. And there were a few things that stood out to me. One was the parent technique. Then the second one was the lightning process. And for me, the thing that stood out with the lightning process was how rapidly you recover. So I thought, okay, at that point, I was bedbound. Let me just say, I was totally bedbound. I literally couldn't even get myself to the bathroom. I needed help getting out of bed. I could hardly feed myself. It was really, really, really bad. At that point, my chronic fatigue was super severe. So I was desperate. So I thought, okay, let me try the lightning process because number one, the recovery rate is quick. And number two, I noticed that there were quite a few people that made a full recovery and a permanent recovery. So I did a little bit more research, and then I contacted a practitioner, lovely lady called Lauren, and I listened to the audiobook. So that's the first step. You listen to the audiobook. It's 4 hours. That's a separate thing that you can do before you even commit to doing the 3-day seminar. But yeah, so I listened to the audiobook. I did the 3-day seminar, and within the second day, I went for a walk. I made myself a meal. The third day, I was jumping on the trampoline, and I was totally recovered. I hadn't felt like myself in 2 years. And finally, I could actually look in the mirror, and I was like, okay, Sarah's back. I'm back. I feel like myself. And it was just the most amazing feeling. And I literally haven't looked back. I've been just every day just getting stronger and stronger, and I haven't had one chronic fatigue symptom since I finished the lightning process.
I don't even know what to say to that. First of all, I guess that I'm so happy for you. I get goosebumps during every interview that I do, and when you're explaining about being bedbound and how bad it was, my heart just breaks for you. I'm so sorry, Sarah, that you've had to go through that. That must have been just an absolute nightmare. But then to turn it around so quickly, what were you thinking when you could see yourself changing so fast and improving so fast?
So with the lightning process, the whole thing behind it is the mind-body connection. So I had such a strong belief that I was going to heal. And again, just seeing the small things each day, like, okay, wow, I made a meal. That's amazing. And focusing on the positive changes, it's just motivating. And again, because you're changing, you're rewiring your brain, and you're firing the neurons that you want to be firing. Just seeing those things, it helps you recover even quickly. So I was just over the moon. I believed it so much, so it wasn't like a shock to me. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I was expecting.
That is absolutely incredible. What were your partner and your family thinking, or what were they saying when they were watching this transformation?
So my partner, obviously, he got quite emotional about it, to finally see me healed, and just the contrast between Sarah being so sick and literally bedbound to being walking around acting like nothing had happened. We were both really, really just overwhelmed with happiness and gratitude.
It's just incredible. I struggle to even wrap my head around it, because it sort of flies in the face of everything that I know about, ME/CFS recovery, which isn't tons. It's just my own experience, from what people that I've talked to. But for me, it was a lot of hard work, and I had to really buckle down for about 18 months to 2 years and just work harder than I could ever possibly exaggerate to get well. And to hear that it could be so fast, it's just, I don't know that there's one path out of this for everybody. So I imagine we can't say that this is the answer for absolutely everybody who has ME/CFS. But I would suspect that there are a lot of people who could be seeing, results like yours, or even if not that dramatic, but still something quite fast. I wonder what some of the barriers are, or what's holding people back from accessing treatment like this. Like, did you have any thoughts on this, or have you? Yeah, I'm curious to hear your take.
I have a few opinions. So I know for me, I was meditating about an hour each day. I couldn't do anything else really towards the end of my chronic fatigue journey. I literally could just lie in bed and listen to gentle, relaxing meditation music. And then I started getting into guided meditations, and I worked my way up to doing an hour every day. And they really did help me. So I feel like going into the lightning process and doing the process, but then also feeling and visualizing and like really feeling those emotions, and then again firing those neurons that you want to fire, but feeling them, that really helped. And I feel like that also is a big impact in how quickly you recover. I mean, obviously if you're going to do the lightning process, you're going to see results, but for me, I feel like because I had been meditating so intensely each day, my mind was strong, and I feel like it did help me do it with ease. Yeah, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, it's actually really quite sad that the doctors in this country and a lot of countries don't recognize the lightning process. And it's something that Phil, the creator, and his team and the people that have recovered and seen such great results with the lightning process are trying to get forward now. I think more and more now we're trying to unite and have a stronger voice about the benefits of doing it and how you can actually transform your life using the lightning process, because it's not just for chronic illness, anxiety, depression, anything like that. You can use it as a tool to transform your life as a whole and not just chronic illness. So I feel like now that's why I'm very verbal about it, and that's why I like to share my story, because there is so much negativity towards things like that. And because I believe in it so much, I really just want everyone just to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I would think at the very least consider it. You would hate for someone to be suffering just because they've discounted something like this.
Yes.
I would imagine, I was just thinking, because even me, when I share my story and of the way that I recovered, and I did work very hard and it did take a pretty long time, but people tend, not very few people, most people are very open and receptive and grateful for the information and really just wonderful. But there are some people, understandably, that are skeptical or want to discount it because it wasn't any complicated supplement regimen, it wasn't any surgery, it wasn't any fancy new designer drugs, it wasn't anything like that. It was a lot of lifestyle stuff like diet and very mild exercise and healing my gut and working on my mental health and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think sometimes, I don't know if you see this, but sometimes people seem to feel that if the treatment is too simple, I mean, mine wasn't easy, but it was simple, that it somehow invalidates the illness itself. Like, it's like, this is a horrible illness, and there's no way that something so simple is going to fix this. So it kind of, takes away from, just the validity and the severity of what they've been going through. And I think also we don't like to think that there can be a single fix that can help multiple things, because that also kind of takes away from the validity of it. Like, this kind of cancer has to have this kind of treatment, and this, ME has to have this kind of treatment. And there's people that break it down even further, like ME and CFS cannot have the same treatment. They have to have their own specialized. And so, I think a lot of us just have all these mindset barriers that hold us back from being open-minded to these things. And it sort of almost like the ego is getting involved, and it just threatens, what we've been through, or takes away from our suffering.
Definitely. I agree with what you're saying 100%. And I also feel like with it being something that you are using your mind and your sorry, I find the lightning process quite difficult to talk about sometimes. Because it's the neuroscience behind it and the technical terms. I also feel like we don't realize the power of the mind and how a lot of functions in our body come from the brain. And if we can help it and move it along and point it in the direction that we want it to go in, the possibilities are quite endless. like I was saying, you can focus on so many things in your life and just use your brain to get there. So with chronic fatigue, we all know that you're like stuck in the fight or flight mode, and that is in your brain. So with the lightning process, you can stop that and move it to the rest and digest in a very easy way using the process. And I feel like that's what makes the lightning process so effective so quickly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's really amazing actually that we don't spend more time, in 2020 already, really focusing on harnessing the power of our brain, because we know it can do really incredible things. This is all truly, truly fascinating, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing it. I think it's such important information to get out there. And I think we tend as humans to be skeptical when things are new to us or we don't really understand them. But, a lot of things are discounted, in the beginning before we generally accept them as being fact or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is just really, really incredible that we can have the ability to harness our brain's power like this. There's just so many. I've been doing videos about this lately, and I've just been paying so much more attention to the things in my life that trigger my sympathetic nervous system, and it's ridiculous how many there are. Even just going for a walk in my neighborhood, there's so many things that can set it off. And so I think it's really good skills to learn. Makes me think that I should, maybe even, I'm very curious about this training. I'm considering doing it myself now, even though I am recovered, because it sounds like such good skills to have in life.
It is. And that's the thing. It's a tool that you have for life. And that's what's so amazing about it.
Yeah, I sound like I'm doing a commercial here. I'm really not. Like, neither one of us is getting paid. Yeah. None of us has anything financial to gain from talking about this. It's just really, and so many people are suffering around the world with this illness. And when I look at what people are going through and the hell that they're trapped in, if there's even a chunk of those people could be helped by this, I hope people will be open-minded to it and consider it. Yeah. So what have you taken away from all of this whole experience of yours? How long was it start to finish, would you say? I know it's hard to put specific dates, but
it was just over 2 years. Okay. So luckily for me, it wasn't too long. I mean, obviously those 2 years were awful, and they felt much longer than 2 years, but I'm very, very grateful and I feel so blessed that it was only 2 years. Because in my mind, in the beginning, I was like, okay, so it seems like people are recovering, but it takes quite a long time. So I was expecting to be in this for the long haul. And then again, like you were saying, your diagnosis says that it's for life. So again, like even small amount of doubt does set in, and it does make you feel like, am I going to have this for the rest of my life? But yeah, so 2 years in the big scheme of things was nothing.
I'm wondering, because you came out of this so quickly. I mean, 2 years. 2 years is a very long time. 2 years is, especially with the severity that your illness was, that's more than long enough. I'm just thinking about the first couple of years of my illness is when I was the worst, and it was really quite intense. And I remember thinking, if and when I do get past this, like, will I be able to just kind of emotionally and cognitively move on? It felt like such a trauma. So if someone had pulled me out of it so quickly at that point, I feel like I would have almost had a little bit of post-traumatic stress, or I don't mean to throw that term around lightly, but it was an extremely traumatic experience for me. But I had a long time to come to terms with my recovery because it did take so long, so I could slowly work on it. So what was it like that for you, since it happened so fast? Were you able to just put the trauma of it down? And was it the skills of the lightning process that helped you do that? Or what was that like for you?
So to be honest, actually a few times recently, I have realized that it was a traumatic experience for me, and I still haven't fully gotten over how severe it was. Like I said, like being totally bedbound, it was scary. And every time I had a massive crash and I was unable to use my limbs, it never got easier. I was always absolutely shocked and scared and emotional. And like I said before, I cried a lot. So it was definitely something that I do still need to 100% emotionally get over, because it was so traumatic. But I was absolutely overwhelmed with such happiness. Like every small thing that I did, and still to this day, everything just brings me so much joy. The smallest little things that I took for granted before. And I know you asked me that, what have I taken from this? And the first thing that I will say is be gentle with yourself. And also love and appreciate your body for what it's doing for you. Don't push it so hard. Don't hate it for how it looks or what weight it is or anything like that. Love it for its functionality and for its ability to just give you life. And self-love is the way to go.
Yeah, sorry, again, just gathering my thoughts here. I find it interesting doing these interviews because, you don't want to just listen to just respond. So I kind of get lost in what people are saying, but then they're done talking and I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, it's my turn to talk.
I'm saying, yeah.
Crap. And you're recording this. Say something smart.
You do such a great job. Like, I literally wouldn't be able to do what you're doing. I actually hate being on camera.
It doesn't show at all. You seem like a natural. I don't love it either, but yeah. Anyways, that was, I guess, what I was thinking the whole time. It's just really, really solid advice and things that take so many of us a lifetime to learn. I suspect some of us never learn those things. So yeah, I think that's really good to know. And I think that's a lot about even just the stress and the whole parasympathetic nervous system. If we're constantly in this state of hating our bodies, pushing it too hard, being disappointed with different things that it can't do, and it just keeps you in a state of dis-ease. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Very true.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing all of this. This is really incredible and just so inspiring. Every story has something to offer. I love hearing people who have been sick for a long time that manage to get out of it, because it gives, people hope and clear evidence that it's never too late. But then also, I absolutely love stories like yours because, for people that have only just gotten sick and maybe it's only been a few months or a year or two, you don't want them to think that it has to be 10 years or 20 years before they get past this. So it's really incredible that, 2 years is still a very long time, but in the scheme of this illness, you were able to get out of it, really quite quickly. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all this. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I very much appreciate you taking the time to do this. If people have questions or they want to get a hold of you or follow you any place, is there some place that they can do that?
Absolutely. So I have my Instagram. It's healwithsarah11_11. I'm constantly posting, giving advice if I can. That's where I actually got a lot of my advice as well. I think the chronic illness community and the CFS community is so strong and really support each other so wonderfully. So I'm on my phone quite often. If anybody just wants to drop me a message or follow, and we can just share advice and tips, and yeah, I'll definitely try my best to get back to whoever messages me.
Perfect. And I will share that in the video description. So if people want to find the link, it will be there. And I am fairly certain you'll be getting some messages because, this is a really amazing journey you've been on. All right. So to those of you watching, we'd love to hear, your thoughts and comments. As always, just leave them in the video below. We'll answer any questions here as well. And for those of you who are wanting to learn more about this, if you haven't seen it already, I actually did interview someone on this channel who is a lightning process practitioner. So I'll link it here on the screen. Her name is Jody, if you want to check it out. She has also a really remarkable recovery story and is a practitioner herself. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you again, Sarah. If you enjoyed this, as always, a nice way to say thanks is just to tap that little like button. And I put out new videos every week, and I hope to see you in the next one.